everybody. We're back again with another episode of Big Talk about Small Business. I'm here with my co-host, Eric Howerton.
What's up, Mark?
All the usual stuff.
Yeah, man. Just cranking.
It's an exciting day.
I've been chilling today, actually.
Have you?
I've been kind of relaxing. I've just been wondering what I'm going to do today.
Wow.
I mean, it's just nice just to kind of work real hard and
with like
just relax.
Half a dozen different businesses and all the kids and stuff you've got.
Out. Just kind of watch the world go by.
Well, I got up early this morning and started cutting grass, which is super gratifying.
Did.
Okay.
It is.
I love it.
That's actually one of the best things in the world to do is to mow. It
is. You watch these videos where they have the people mowing. Have you seen any of those?
It's so relaxing.
The guy goes around and does it for free.
Yeah, I've thought about doing a free landscaping business myself.
And then he also does power washing, which you could practically pay me to do because I love doing it.
I saw your post recently on you doing some power washing.
Yeah,
it feels so good.
It's so gratifying. It's immediate, results.
Yeah.
And I like the ones where they take the old cars out of the barns too and clean them. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen those.
There's usually like rat feces involved. Other than that, it's a lot of fun and very gratifying.
Hey, nothing wrong with a couple of rats here and there.
I guess. Yeah.
It's good for you.
So anyway, sorry about that, audience. Today we've got two special guests with us, Sara and Luke. And
welcome.
Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
It's great. Former students. And are they both employees of White Spider at this point?
They are actually.
Yeah. So they're
Thanks for that, Eric.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh, you won.
Yeah, for right now. Should not have put that on.
Depends how this podcast goes.
Yeah. Depends on that. And then today is a Friday, so.
But we thought
those were Mark's termination days back in the day.
We thought it's true. I do believe in letting people go on
You
Friday.
Taught me the Friday afternoon.
Yes.
Let go.
Have the weekend to cool down.
Yeah.
Everybody can readjust.
It was great. Yeah. And everybody, I mean, it's not as big of a deal.
Yep. It's true. It's never fun.
No, but you might as well make the best of it.
Yep.
By choosing the best day.
That's for sure.
That was my first question on this list, actually. What's the best day to fire someone?
Firing people is really hard. There's only one person I ever fired that I was like really glad to fire.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And she was just so cancerous that there was like a celebration the day she packed up her stuff.
You got relieved of all that toxicity.
Yeah.
I mean, you felt free again.
Toxic.
But
most of the time I don't feel real good about it. But as my wife likes to say, people fire themselves, So
very true.
Anyway, we've got two great guests with us today, Luke and Sara. Why don't you guys tell our audience a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah, so I'm Luke Waller. I was formerly a student of Mark's back while I was at the University of Arkansas. And he was an incredible teacher. Seriously, he was one of my favorite ones. A lot of the best teachers at the Walton College, I feel like, are former business owners or people who have operated in the space that they're teaching, that have real world experience. And Mark was a great testament to that. Anyways.
Luke was a front row sitter.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
Always a good sign.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Always.
They're coming there to learn.
Yeah, they're more engaged. Even during COVID, where we'd have these massive classes, with like no one there. There'd be Luke.
Really?
One of
still
4
showing
people who actually showed up.
Good job, Luke.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, right out of school, I started a marketing agency that Mark was very supportive of, gave me lots of direction on, and ran that for a while. And I guess in January of this year, started working at White Spider.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting world. It's completely different from Walmart.com is completely different from just normal online marketing.
Sure.
So it's been super interesting to learn. But yeah, I'm a Northwest Arkansas native, grew up here. Yeah.
Lived in China at one point.
Lived in China for a couple of years.
Right. Yeah.
Whoa.
That's a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
So you look like you cleaned yourself up since you went to work for Eric. What is it?
He came in with some long
shave or
yeah. Then he grew a mustache a couple weeks ago. He kind of switches it up a little bit.
I'm glad you got off that mustache thing. What is it with all these young guys in mustaches?
Man, it's a thing, man.
Yeah, they're coming. They're coming back.
It's weird,
dude. I saw a cat at the Onyx headquarters down there in downtown Rogers. I mean, I saw probably about 10 dudes, young guys,
and they all mustaches, look like Ron big, beefy. Burgundy. Yeah,
yeah.
It's the
they're always the really thick. Yeah,
and really short shorts too. Mustache.
That ain't right. I'm sorry. That just
drinking coffee and eating muffins.
Okay,
with some big headphones on.
All right,
it was legit.
All right,
it was legit.
So yeah,
are you jealous? Is that what you're going to be doing next?
I'm so jealous. That's what I'm going to do tomorrow.
Anyway, it's nice to see you, Luke, and I'm glad you cleaned your act up.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're proud of you.
I was never worried about you. So Sarah, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Sara McDowell. I recently finished up the MBA program at the University of Arkansas last May. Happy to be done with school. Love school, but happy for the free time back. Yep. I've been at White Spider for about a year and a half now. Started on the sales team. And
I remember those days.
Oh, yeah.
She quit the sales team.
Some of those sales team members won't let me live it down. Won't let me forget. But did that for about 6 months as an internship and then moved over to the insights and account services side of the business.
I see. When you got your MBA, did you think you were too good to sell or what?
That was such a great question and well said too.
This feels like a loaded question.
It is very loaded.
No, I enjoyed the sales process, but not really where I thrive, to be completely honest. I really like working with clients after they sign up with us, and it's very much a collaborative relationship there. It's been great.
Good. Greatest thing about Sarah is that she laughs at everything I say in the office.
Yeah, I'm sure.
At first I was like, man, you know, she's great. And then I started realizing that one of the other ladies that works with us, she goes, Eric, that's not a big deal. She laughs at everything everyone says. And then I started watching, I started recognizing it's true.
It is nice.
It's nice to have someone laugh at your stuff.
A very, very intelligent person.
Yeah. And then she laughs.
Knows how to make people feel good.
That's right, man.
You know?
It's like a live studio audience around you all the time.
And her being so smart and then laughing at my jokes make me feel like my jokes are really smart and good.
Your jokes are really good. Just because I laugh at everything.
I will say, Eric and I have worked together before, you know. I don't know if you guys knew that, but he is so much fun to work with.
Yeah.
Oh,
keep it fun, man.
The day fun. Dude. It's like you look forward to going there and seeing Eric.
Thanks, man. I appreciate
every
that.
Day.
I felt the same about you too.
Did you?
Even though like yours, the reason I was excited to see you every day is because I knew you'd be flipping your crap about something. You know?
I'm a lot more calm now.
Well, and I mean, I only mean like little things that are like just keep happening over and over again. I mean, if I could get Mark banging his hands on the table, and a lot of times I make up stories or I exaggerate them. Like I come in like, Mark, man. Like, dude, I don't think that contract, they just came back and said they're not going to sign for another 30 days. And he's like, oh my gosh, you know, and it's like, why, you know, and something like that. And I was just sit back and just enjoy the reaction.
Seeing me get excited.
I do. I like instigating.
Yeah. Well, thank God. The older I get, the less excitable I am.
I have noticed it's harder to get you going.
It's one advantage of getting old.
Yeah.
The life force slowly drains.
Yeah. just downward, just kind of slower.
Yeah, at some point that you hit an optimum level of life force and excitability.
Right.
And still able to get, you know, something done. So I hope I'm approaching that.
So I thought that we were thinking it'd be a good idea to bring Sarah and Luke in, because I think what would be interesting is that from your perspective at your, you know, career point, especially coming out of school, starting in, you know, with new career oriented jobs. And then also Luke, I mean, with your business that you already had. And then Sarah, I know you've kind of inquired some as well about just some entrepreneurial related things. Mm-hmm. I just thought it'd be kind of neat for the audience to kind of hear that perspective. I'm actually interested too, like what types of questions. And I think there'll be a lot of folks that might be able to relate to that. So I think that's pretty neat that, you know, that we could kind of have that dialogue. So why don't y'all fire away? Who's going first?
Yeah, I can start us off.
Go for it, sir.
You like me to?
Yeah.
So what are some key lessons that you've learned throughout your entrepreneurial journey that you believe every small business owner should know?
Mark, you want me to go for that one, or you want to start it out?
No, you
Okay.
take that.
Man, I think that a key lesson from my perspective is that it takes a lot. It's good. It's hard. It's just absolutely difficult and hard. And to walk into it and think that just because you have a good idea doesn't mean it's going to be received, you know? And just because you can see other folks doing it doesn't mean it's going to be easy to do. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot more devils in the details as you start to get your business going. And so it's just hard, right? I mean, like I even, Mark was mentioning it, along with White Spider has obviously grown into a much larger organization, but even starting up a new business, like which I have, like it's just as hard as it was the first time. And because I might even know exactly certain things to go do, like, man, just dealing with the tax regulations, the government, dealing with human resource issues, dealing with legal contracts and everything, new technologies, softwares, banking. I mean, all that type of stuff, financing. I mean, it's just as hard to do that as it ever was. And I don't think that when, if you create more entities or whatever, it doesn't necessarily get any easier. I mean, there's certain things that maybe a little bit and you can avoid the pitfalls, but it's just hard to start up a business and get it going. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, walking into that, one of my biggest lessons would be to try not to be too terribly naive. Although being naive is also not a bad thing, especially depending on the age. Yeah. I mean, when I was young, I started my first business.
You don't know why not to do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, my first business was 22 years old. I mean, had I known then what I know now, I mean, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Was that the magazine?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful magazine.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, I put everything I had into it, and I didn't, but like to start something like that up again. I mean, I would know exactly, or not exactly, but I'd know a lot more about the financial burden that it was going to take and the costs and the expenditures. But I really didn't even look at that. I just went like, oh, I'm doing it because it needs to be done. Mm-hmm. But it taught me a lot of lessons, but then I wouldn't have learned all the lessons I learned. So you got any points, Mark? Biggest lessons?
I think keys. I don't know. Yeah, if they're necessarily lessons or not, but I think when I look at people and I go, who's going to be successful doing their own thing and who isn't, it just comes down many times to a couple things like obsession. Are they obsessed with it? Do they get up early and think about it? Do they write about it? Do they communicate? Do they, are they going early or are they going late? I mean, if they shut down on the weekend and you don't hear from them, or they shut down at 5 o'clock, forget it. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. You just have to be obsessed.
You do.
And you got to be able to multitask, because you're never going to be able to just hyper focus on one thing. There's a million things going on, and you got to be able to juggle all that and deal with the ambiguity of not knowing for sure what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Just dealing with ambiguity is really hard for a lot of people. But, it's a cliche, but it's true. It's like, if you never give up, you'll never fail. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think just basically just constantly trying something new. My saying is there's always something you can do. It just doesn't matter how bad things are. There's always something you can do. And if you have that kind of a mindset, I think you're a lot better able to overcome whatever happens that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I guess the last thing is just action. Some people, they're coffee shop entrepreneurs is what I call them. They just sit around and they got a million ideas and they never actually do any of them.
Chief strategist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Chief strategist.
Yeah.
My undergraduate degree is in strategy. And I'll never forget that this sounds ridiculous. And I don't remember if either of you were in the class. I don't think you were, maybe Sara, but I don't recall. But I had this one girl, I'd go around and ask everybody, like, what do you want to do when you get out of school? And this girl said, I want to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I'm like, wow, that's ambitious. That's a big goal, but great. I said, where do you think you're going to start out? She goes, well, I'd be willing to start out as a COO. And I'm like, oh, okay, you'll be the number 2 person in a Fortune 500.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's going to be a problem. Anyway, I just think if you're going to be successful as an entrepreneur, you got to be willing to get your hands dirty.
Yeah, you do.
And do the work of the business sometimes just to show everybody you can do it. Otherwise, it's really hard to garner their respect.
Well, I think that one thing you're pointing out on that action part, like I learned that a long time ago, is because I found myself strategizing. Like I've always been kind of a big picture thinker. I can see some things in my mind, but I can definitely go down this trail of just living in this world of writing and designing this
you do
picture.
write and get
I geek out. I mean, it's like a painting to me that I'm trying to express and what I've kind of can see. And I learned a long time ago, I was like, man, this is just absolutely not getting me anywhere. And so how do you break off from that to get into the actions and just trying things and not being afraid to fail on any little thing? I mean, sometimes you just got to sign the document, instead of sitting there reading over and thinking. And legal documents are a lot like that. Like you could.
I don't like reading legal documents.
I don't either.
Thank God my wife worked in a lawyer's office because
That's terrible.
I don't read them. I just sign them. I do. I'm serious. I'll get her to read
awesome.
It.
That was the best thing I've ever heard anyone ever say.
Yeah, it's true. You make a good point.
Yeah, but because you could talk with an attorney about all the risks and potential risks, and it's just like, man, just sign it. I mean, so I can get to work and start taking action. I think that's a good analogy is on that. So,
the other thing I was thinking about this. What was the original question? I don't want to stray too far. Sir.
No, you're fine. Key lessons that you've learned throughout your entrepreneurial journey.
I think one of my key lessons that I've learned is I will bet on the people. If I see somebody that I think is good and I trust them and I think that they're ethical and I think they're committed and I think they're intelligent, I will bet on them.
Yep.
I don't need to know all the facts. I wrote several articles recently, like, should you invest in the firm you work for? And there's a million people write articles like this, right? And they'll talk about, well, what is the debt to equity ratio?
Yeah.
And, how profitable are they? Is their EBIT, doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
It means absolutely nothing. What matters is the people who are running the business. Okay.
It's true.
The people who are in the key jobs. And if you have confidence in them, they'll get through all that. That's just a temporary situation. And I think, if I did anything right that really helped me a lot, was I was really pretty good at picking people. I mean, I made some errors.
Sure.
Undoubtedly, I made some errors, but I would try to rectify them. But just being able to pick good people and just, give them a real opportunity, not this, it's going to be great, but by the way, I'm going to pay you nothing.
Right.
Okay. I'm not going to share any information with you, and you don't get to make any real decisions.
Yep.
That's not the way to get good, smart people.
So when it comes to finding good people, early on in the journey, I imagine, you're asking them to take on a lot of risk in their career and bet on you. So how are you finding good people who are willing to kind of jump in the deep end with you and trust what you're going to make happen?
Well, I mean, maybe you should ask Eric. His company is basically at the size mine was at its peak before we sold it the first time around. But, for me, it's a combination of a lot of things. I mean, you have to be somebody that they feel is trustworthy and responsible and has a purpose, and that purpose is going to be conveyed to the rest of the organization. I think that's important to a lot of people. But I also think it's important to do things like, share the business planning process with everybody. Share the key financial metrics with everybody, bring them in, not be afraid to not hold your cards too close to the vest.
Yeah.
Or you won't get good people to work for you. That's what I think.
What I would add is like, number one, there's going to be certain people that are going to be even interested in that to begin with. You might as well knock most of the population out. Like I'd say most of the folks that are in your all's age range, right, that are in their career area are looking for more, hey, I want to make this certain salary that I've been told about. This is my kind of lifestyle I'm trying to get to. And I want it to be secure, and I work for a big company that has a lot of places to move up. Like you're not going to get that with working with a small business. And so you go ahead. I mean, a lot of times I wouldn't even waste a breath on a lot of folks like that, but then you're going to have some that just don't want to fit that boat. And so that's kind of your audience and who you're talking to. So, but there's two things on that. Number one, those people in that smaller audience are going to be driven off passion. And so if you come to the table, I mean, this is what my experience was, man, I was always just passionate about what I'm doing. Like, I mean, like if even with podcast videos or something, I'm just like, man, I can paint. I'm just like insistent and relentless on the fact that this is going to fit a need and it's going to be fun and let's go do it. And we're going to do it together. And then the things that Mark said, transparency, I've learned that over the years. Like, don't be so guarded about everything. People just want to know where they're at, where they're going, how they're going to impact it, et cetera. And I'd say on top of that, one of the big things that I like to do is just entrust those people to make decisions, even when I know that it may not be the right decision.
It's essential.
Yeah,
it's hard for a lot of entrepreneurs, though, to do that.
Yeah, that's true. I've found that's been one of the greatest.
Well, that's why you've been able to grow. You would not have the employees that you have if you weren't able to do that.
Yeah, I mean,
you'd be a 15-person company.
That's true. And I mean, there's times to step in when the impact could be huge, but if it's not going to shut the business down or you're not going to lose your biggest account ever, then let them make mistakes. Let them learn on their own. That's how everybody learns, right? And then they're going to know it for sure, and then they're going to be able to teach it or lead it the next time. And you got to be able to let things go. I mean, it's hard. I see a lot of entrepreneurs that have a hard time with that, letting go.
Boy, they do.
And you will suffocate your business. I did that in my first business. I suffocated it until it was worth nothing. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very common problem, as you said, because you tend to be a control freak.
Yeah.
You want to do your thing. You want to do it the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
And so that sort of leads to that behavior, but it's counterproductive.
Very much.
At some point.
Yeah, and it changes as you grow.
Does. Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, as the company grows, like, that's the other thing I think about business that I've learned. Starting a company is different than growing a company. I mean, just two totally different worlds, right? And I would say that, I feel very comfortable in starting companies. Growing companies is a lot more challenging. And then you have to, you have to let go more there, and the key people that you bring in are even more, and it kind of compounds itself. As it gets bigger, the people get more and more important that are leading that company. And then you got to make harder decisions. Like if Luke, if I started a company, you came and joined because you're excited about my enthusiasm about it, and we built something together over the last 2 years, but then we start growing and you can't handle it because you act like a buffoon. That decision to have a talk with him, like, hey man, you got to go.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a harder decision as the company's growing, but that's what happens. Things become a lot more difficult.
They do. I'm glad you brought up growth though, because you say how to get good people. If your vision as a small business owner is we're going to stay small, I like it. I don't want to have any more than 10 people. And the day I decide I want to send everybody home, I want to send them all home and shut the doors or whatever. That is crap. You'll never get anybody good to work for you if that's your view. The growth is where the opportunities come in for people. And you've got to commit to growth. If you're not committed to growth, then you're going to have a really hard time getting good people.
Yep.
So in those two kind of phases of the starting the business and the growth side of the business, is the starting the business, does it feel like it's maybe more templated? Like the processes and the things that you have to do are a little bit more standardized, and then the growth is much more playing it by ear, whatever industry you're in, opportunities that present itself. Is that the case, or do you?
My opinion is neither one of them are really templated.
Really?
No, that's spoken like an MBA, isn't it? I'm sorry, Sarah.
It hasn't worn off yet. Give me a little bit more time.
No, I agree with you, Eric. I don't template anything. I tell everybody in their business plans, they like, well, if you give me some good examples of business plans, I won't do it.
Yeah.
Because I say every business plan's different.
That's so true.
I just
the only template I have is an operating agreement.
Yeah.
And then even then I have to change it a little bit. But I mean, like,
it's like
operating agreement, like here's the structure of it. It looks good. It protects us. But the rest of it is completely custom.
Yeah.
Completely custom.
Taking a step back to what both of you all said about not being naive when starting businesses, and you really have to put in a lot of work. What is a realistic expectation for the first year, first 5 years? Is it going to be 5 years?
In your entire blood, man.
Yeah.
It's everything you got.
Your being.
Absolutely.
There's no separation between the business and you.
It's the number one priority, man. It's got to drive you. Like I mean, this Mark might not agree with me, but I mean, like legitimately, like I've said it in interviews before where I did sacrifice my family and my health for the business. And it's true. And people will be like, I didn't sacrifice my family and, I'm a successful. Well, that's okay. But I mean, but the reality is I think if you look at any entrepreneur, are they sacrificing their time with their family, their income, their health, their physical. I mean,
there's always trade-offs.
There's trade-offs everywhere in your life as an entrepreneur. You can't escape it. There's not a balance to it, man. Yeah. You're never off. And if you, I mean, that's
I think work-life balance is a myth.
Yeah.
But I like work-life integration.
Yeah.
I think that's possible.
One thing, and on that, so what I always did, and I actually told my wife about it last night, because I was like, I mean, like, honestly, like yesterday, I just had so much information going in my head at Spiderland. Like it was just so, and you don't know the kind of stuff we deal with. It's like all these massive complicated things and this person, that, and that. And it got to be too much. And, that's happened a million times in my career. But the thing, and talking about integration, and I told my wife, I was like, the cool thing is being an entrepreneur, you can escape. Like you just need to know when you need to go escape. Like if it starts getting cloudy, I mean, you bounce out, go do something, separate from it. But, what was funny enough is I came back to it about, in 45 minutes to an hour. I was kind of depressurized. And then I got back into it and I felt good and was able to keep cranking and doing what I love. But there are points where it's just like, it's a little too much. I mean, sometimes it's just too much information. I mean, my brain's not very big. I'm not the smartest guy in the room,
You're plenty smart.
Thanks, Mark.
I think if you have a lot of different businesses going at the same time, though, that's actually good because you can take a break from one and you move into the other, and then you realize that there's crossover. There are lessons that you learn in one place that apply to something else.
And it's fun.
And it helps keep you fresh.
It does. It does.
It's just less boring.
It's weird how that works.
Yeah.
Because like to an outsider, like my wife, she probably felt like I deserved to be overwhelmed. It's like, it'd be her perfect chance to say, I told you so.
Exactly. Yeah.
But she doesn't understand is like it immediately, it does. It makes me feel refreshed. I feel like I'm invigorated again because I can't handle the mundane.
We're going to have our wives on next week.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be a good one to tune into.
Yeah,
we're going to finally set them straight. I am so ready, bro. I can't tell you.
This is really
like,
going to be fun.
Like every time we talk, my wife and I do, she's always like, doesn't listen to what I have to say or react and change like I want her to change. She's changing.
This is funny.
Next week, man.
This is humorous. Okay.
You might want to bring in a couples therapist to aid in that conversation.
For her to go through her change.
This is not my conversation I plan on having with mine. Okay. I don't want her to change a bit. I'm totally happy with exactly the way she is.
I don't want my wife to change. I just want her to change her attitude towards me.
Oh, well. Listen, it's you, Eric. That's going to be hard for any woman. But no. So, yeah, I think one of the advantages of being in business for yourself, in spite of the fact that you have to work a lot and be obsessed and all that stuff, is that you do and still have more control over your time. At least in my opinion, I did. Like I never missed kids' birthdays. I was always home. The only holiday I ever missed was Halloween once, where I was flying from Phoenix to Boston, and they flew us to Minneapolis first, and we got stuck in a snowstorm. Mm-hmm. It's the only time. Mm-hmm. So having that kind of control is a plus. Even if you work a lot, you still can do those kinds of things. I think easier than if you're an employee.
Yeah.
Look, another quick thing on your question. I mean, and it's real to me. I mean, everything's real to you when it's subjective, right? But there was a period of time in Spiderland whenever it was tough times. Like, I mean, I'm the person that's got to bear it at this point in moment. But I knew that, like, I could literally visualize myself crawling across the hot asphalt from my spider bus and like literally bleeding out and dying on the road to keep the company going. But I mean, that was like how intense it was to me, I mean, and it wasn't necessarily a pride thing where that's my baby like that. I can't stand that. Like, I mean, maybe my first business, it was my baby, but it has nothing to do with being my baby. It has to do with the fact that I 100% confidently believe that I was right in fitting a puzzle piece to the market, and the world needed to have what we were delivering to it. And I had a responsibility and an honor to make sure that puzzle piece got stuck in that world, because it was my life mission. And so, Braveheart it, man. I mean, if the world's not going to listen to you, then freaking go out doing it.
Silverback
it.
Yeah,
exactly. But that's how far I get into kind of your question. Like, how much is the commitment? I mean, that's how serious it is to me, Well,
it's a total commitment.
Total.
I mean, I've risked everything I had. I never even thought anything about it. No, I mean, seriously, you got to go hawk your house, whatever. Yeah. Cash in your 401k. Yeah. I mean, go get your cars that you own outright, finance so you can get cash out of them. You do whatever you got to do.
Whatever it takes, man.
In order to keep it going and make it happen, because you have faith.
Do you think that there's ever a point when you should cut your losses?
Oh, yeah.
And so how do you know? How do you know when that is? And how do you know when you should bleed yourself dry to keep it going? That's
a really good question. I mean, I think a lot of it, again, sort of depends on like the people. Mm-hmm. Do you feel good about the team you've got? If you don't feel like you got the right team and you're losing interest in it, it's really probably your interest is the key. Like, if you don't find it something that you're really interested in anymore, then it's probably time to get out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like you start waking up and hating what you're doing. Yeah. I would be out in a split second. Like, I don't think I would, even if I was making money in it, I'd be trying to get out of that thing.
Yeah. I mean, that happened to me more than once.
Yeah. Yeah, you had successful business, but you just hated it.
Right, but that doesn't mean you just shut it down.
No.
Hopefully you can sell it. Yeah. Or in the case of like our real estate stuff, we just started getting rid of all our assets.
That's true. Yeah, and that was very successful. Yeah, I mean, you had a lot going on with that,
but it wasn't fun.
Right,
it got to where it wasn't fun.
Yeah, it's not fun. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think another gauge for me would be is that after I have so you got your target market that has a need, and there's audiences in that market. This is very important. Not when you think that the market doesn't need a product, but when you've exhausted all the audiences in the market. And so a lot of people make a mistake like, okay, I got this product, I'm going to go sell it. And then they go talk to 5 or 10 people with a certain demographic profile or whatever you want to call it. And then it doesn't work. Then they just say it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. Like, an entrepreneur can't do that. You go to the next audience. You try to find your audience. Like, in the businesses I have right now, I know full well, all I know is that the market needs it. I just don't know which audience is the best. It's going to really, really engage with what I need. And there might be multiple audiences that engage in it, but there's one audience that really pays for the value of it, right? It pays for the lion's share of it.
Yeah.
But I think that if I went through my little investigation and exploration and I can't find an audience, then I'd probably start bowing out.
Interesting.
That's an interesting perspective, because I feel like you more often hear the opposite of that, where you identify an audience and their need, and then you create the product.
I don't know how the hell, I mean, like, man, seriously, like, dude, if you ask me, like, on just in White Spider, my time there, like, our business is nothing like what it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
Other than some core competencies, and capabilities and know-how, but like the pricing model, the business model, the marketing, the sales process, the execution process, everything's different. And then what we did is different, and who we said we are,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have evolved and adapted 100 times over. And so I don't know that you can, you can theoretically determine that it's this audience and they're going to pay this price and they're going to want it for this long and it's going to do this kind of churn. It's going to, whatever the case it might be, you cannot predict that, especially with macro influences, which happen a lot in our business too, right? I mean, there's just,
well, they influence everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
people change,
the stock, the motorcycle business, that's something that you and I are both getting involved in. And it's a great example. If the stock market goes up, guess what? People buy more motorcycles. Now, why is that? Because affluent people have portfolios. They determine their sense of well-being and how much money they can spend based on whether that goes up or down. If it goes down, they start panicking. Has no impact on their income, really on a daily or monthly basis at all. It's just their sort of perception of self-worth, And so the macro market just, yeah, you're right. I mean, there are things that do happen that influence your buyers that are completely out of your control.
Yeah. And you can't, it's like looking at, no, you can't. It's like saying like, I'm going to be alive in, 2 years, 2 weeks, whatever it might be. I mean, there's no way to predict that. Now I can do my best to take care of myself and
increase the odds. Yeah.
And plan for it. Like I'm going to be, Mark's age, whenever Mark's going to live till he's like 130, by the way, just FYI. He's got the genes. And he takes really good care of himself, so he's like doubling
laughing about that.
He's like eating cheeseburgers.
I ate McDonald's on the way here and just had a lucky strike in the parking lot.
Yes. I totally support all of that. So I mean,
myself,
I love it. Like I wish I could do it, but I mean, you just can't predict. Like you have to be able. You have to be able to react to it on a dime too. And like, it's like I was talking to one of the sales folk, a person the other day, selling some stuff. And it's like, okay, we built this rate card, we built the pricing, and here's our products and our offerings and our services. And you go to a meeting and you know who that person is. You walk in the meeting and you're ready to give them all this stuff. And his response to me is like, well, she wasn't really interested in any of it, but she did bring up something about this. And I'm like, where's the contract for it?
Yeah, that's an opportunity.
Yeah. And he's like, well, I wanted to come back because we don't really have that in our kit yet. I'm like, I don't care. You tell them, you say, you're interested in that. You got to keen in on those interests because that's an audience. And by the way, you have the capability. You're competent for it. Like you take the needs assessment, you go back, you talk to your team, you come with a plan, and because you can always say, hey, let me go back and let me, put some polishing touches on this. And I'm making a proposal I make sure is great for exactly what you're talking about. That's how you deliver it. But if you just sat there and stayed in your box like you planned, that's probably the problem is that people make these great grandiose plans and they won't allow themselves to be flexible. And then you're going back to a group of investors who put money on your plan. And now you're trying to duck and dodge and navigate that as you're going in the market. There's a massive disconnect between the investor and the entrepreneur or the manager, professional manager in that standpoint. And so if those things aren't married up, that's where there's a lot of tension that goes on and you can really hurt your business by doing that.
Yeah, I got excited about
investors. If you have investors.
But yeah, I mean, if you do have investors, the best thing to do is just talk with them constantly.
Yes. That's so good.
It's essential.
Yeah, that is really good.
Yeah, people don't do it. They don't give them the bad news. They only want to give the good. And there's not enough frequency of communication.
I've lost investment opportunities because I was just ignorant. But I did not communicate. I did not. Looking at it now, all they're wanting to be engaged in the business. And honestly, they'd probably rather hear more from me and me be on their nerves than to not hear enough. Even though it might, in the meantime, they're like, well, this is great. They're not bothering me. But the reality is that at some point, whether that's 3 weeks or 2 months, they're going to start getting a little antsy about it, especially when you pop in the next presentation and you've lost $50,000.
Yeah, or 500 or
500.
Yeah,
or millions. It gets worse. Yeah. No, that's such a good piece of advice right there. Because there's so many people that are raising capital. It seems to be a trend, or it's the new way of doing in a lot of ways. Like, I mean,
a lot of people think that's the first thing I do after I get my ideas. I raise capital. These guys know how I hate that, because if you can just demonstrate that your business actually works for a while, you will give a whole lot less away to get that capital.
Yeah. What did you? You always say equity is the most expensive capital. Right?
It is.
Yeah,
it absolutely is. If you look at like what private equity or VC investors' expectations are, I mean, compare that to even a 15% interest rate.
Yeah.
Okay. That's nothing.
Yeah.
The interest is nothing compared to what the expectations are. 20, 25, 30, 40x.
And it's expensive for you too.
Yeah.
Like as an entrepreneur, because like you could be unknowingly giving away many, many millions of dollars.
Yeah, if you're successful, that equity is really expensive. And then the only way they can get their money out is to do what? There's no liquidity unless they sell the business.
Yeah.
So if you're not ready to sell the business, that's another problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't mind outside investors if I need them and I've exhausted my debt capital opportunities.
Or sales.
Right. And B, they bring something to the table that the company doesn't have. So they're a much more active participant and contributor than just the money. The money is one thing, but energy, contribution, ideas, connections.
Yeah.
You know, that's valuable.
Absolutely.
Within entrepreneurship, there's multiple ways to get into it. You can raise money, you can bootstrap. You can buy an existing business that's doing well. You can buy one that's doing poorly. What are the types of entrepreneurship that you all have experienced and seen? And looking back on it, what do you think gives you the highest chance of success? Would you do it differently? Yeah, what does that look like?
So, I mean, my experience has been just startup. You know, I mean, I never raised money for the business. I mean, even in White Spider, we didn't raise any capital for it. I had $400 in my own pocket in it, and so did Alex, when we co-founded it. And then we didn't relinquish any equity in exchange for capital, or investment. And so that's been predominantly my experience. I haven't really ever bought a business, that's existing, although I can see a lot of value in that. There can be tremendous amount of value in that, especially when you get into, actually, that's not true. I have, but the value of that is that it's, the database, the customer base that's already there, and a lot of the processes, and those types of things.
The history
of it, the brands, there's a lot to having a brand name. I mean, trust, you built it. It's not a cheap thing to build trust in a community. Not at all, or against your audience. I mean, I think that we can even look at White Spider. I mean, it's hard to get your fingers on while we continue to grow, but I'm adamant about the fact that I've never failed somebody. Like I haven't, and I don't think our team has. And and like fail them. I'm not saying like mess up, but but like you build that reputation precedes itself. Like so anyway, that's a lot of value there. I can see raising capital. I've never gone out and I have done pitch decks. I have tried to raise capital in the past. It just didn't work out for multiple reasons. I'm glad it didn't. I would say that that there are certain businesses that I would do that with. I think that's one thing. Like if you can start up something, and a lot of times service businesses are really great for that. Like I can start a service. Don't take a lot of capital. Doesn't take many people at first. And go chase the money and work that up and build that up slowly. I think that, don't go raise capital for that stuff.
Yeah.
But if you're going to try to develop out a full tech stack and all this other kind of stuff and compete with the major markets, like, I mean, you might as well be in for a ride that you're not even really an entrepreneur in a sense for that. You're a chief strategist and you want to become a good manager. Like you're an executive type person. Like that. Yeah. I'm not talking smack about it. It's just different. It's like the difference between a CFO and a CEO, you know, or a CMO. I mean, like, you know, we have some of the greatest executive leaders on the freaking planet living within 15-mile radius of us here. And I wouldn't be able to hold a candle to them, you know, when it comes to management like that. But, you know, I think that, you know, if you have that idea, you know, there's a lot of ways to fund and capital something. It doesn't have to be with you relinquishing all your equity, because once you do, you become an executive manager.
Gotcha.
You better be ready to play that game. It's going to be a lot of politics, a lot of boardrooms, a lot different ball game.
It really is. So I'll answer that question. I've done every one of those things. Either myself. I mean, I can't even remember how many startups I've done. Probably 10. I've done some of them myself and some with other people. I have bought into existing businesses and been a minority shareholder probably another 10 or 12 times over my life. I have bought troubled businesses myself or as part of other companies that I worked with and turned them around, and I bought successful businesses. I would say my preference, if I look back in history, it would be, if I was going to start my whole entrepreneurial career over again, I would probably go buy an existing business that needs to be turned around. Owner financing is available. It's just a faster start. If they're really in poor shape, the owner wants to get out, they're going to make it real possible for you to get that thing. Okay. Because they want out of it more than anything else. They don't expect a huge payoff. They'll probably finance it to you. And I like that. Then I got, you know, as Eric pointed out, you've got employees and processes and a brand, and maybe a bad brand.
It could be a bad brand, but you know, there's a story to turn around a bad brand.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because if the business has been in business for a while, that one day in the past they were probably a good brand.
Yeah.
But bad management or whatever the circumstance is can turn it into a bad brand. And then you reinvigorate it. You might be a hero to a lot of people that love that brand originally, which is cool. It's nostalgic to it.
Yeah. So I like that first. And then my second choice would be a startup that you bootstrap.
Yeah. This is fun.
And I'm all dogging
it.
That.
We call it dogging it, don't we?
And then my third preference would be to become an investor in an existing company and be more and more involved with that. So I take my small investment and I make it into something valuable.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's sort of buying a successful existing business is super, super risky. Most of the time, they don't want to be acquired.
Right.
The employees are unhappy you're there. Any change you make is one.
And you're saying the employees are unhappier at a successful?
No, they're unhappy that you're there. That you bought it.
Oh, yeah. I got you.
You're going to screw it up. Yeah. I mean,
yeah, dude. That's a real thing.
It is real.
We've been through a number of acquisitions in our life, and acquisition is like one of the scariest things for the entire company.
They hate it. They're fearful.
Very fearful.
But you take a troubled company where nobody
thank God.
Paychecks are coming sporadically. They're glad to see you. Okay.
That's funny.
They're welcome you with open arms. So, I mean, I just think,
very different.
The really successful business, you have to pay so much for it that if anything goes wrong afterward, the payback period goes out so long that you're never going to get out of the hole on it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I think that's one of the big money players, the PE firms, and, capital firms. They've corralled that so they can ride out that long cycle of a successful, doing well business. Then they know some ways that they can tap onto it where it's going to grow even further, and they can play that. But I mean, unless you're sitting on a lot of, millions of dollars and you start your own PE firm and you're talking about just being an entrepreneur, I think what Mark's talking about, I mean, it's good stuff, man.
Most of the really good private equity groups, they specialize in certain industries, so they get to know that really well. And so I think that's really important to them. And B, they look for ways to combine companies, or they look for companies that have proven that they're good at buying other companies to use as a platform.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we work with some of them at SY Group that, you know, have invested 9-figure investments in some of these businesses that were successful. And that's the reason they do it. They're looking for a platform.
Yeah.
They're like, these guys have proved they bought 10 other companies and integrated them. This is the company we're going to bet on. We'll throw capital in there and they can do more of that, not just what they do on their own.
Right. Right.
And that's a good situation for private equity. That, or we've got all these different companies. We can share clients, or we can share capabilities to move across the platform. Most of them don't do a very good job with the sharing, though.
Right.
And there's a whole lot of reasons for that. They set up their deals based on earnouts and other things. So you have to keep that entity discrete and on its own. That works against integration, in my experience.
It does. It's interesting. It gets really complex. You know, I think that it's like the thing just to know is like, because I wish I would have known it when I was younger. I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. I never even really heard the word. You know, it was definitely not like what it is in today's time, where it's kind of been risen up as
glamorized,
sensationalized.
Yeah.
And it's not so sensational. I'll tell you that. Like, you better be ready to be Braveheart. Like, if you like being attacked, it's true. Like, let's get real here.
Oh no, there's truth to that.
If you like being attacked, if you like having targets on your back, I'll tell you this one quick thing is, in the beginning, it was very exciting and everybody was supportive. But the second that I started that the company started becoming successful, the arrows got out, man, and it was brutal. And I was not. I had no reality check to that. Like I had no understanding. But I mean, like, if you're not ready to go to war, then it's going to be absolutely miserable. I can't remember what I was really saying. Well, if I would have been, had I known back when I was young and started my entrepreneurial career about all these different options, it would have been pretty nice. And I could have maybe calculated it, but you can't calculate too much, right? But I mean, there's just a lot of different ways you can take, and it's kind of like going to a bank, right? They have a lot of services. Like, if you go down this road, you just need to know like where that's going to put you, you know, immediately and in the future. And don't fantasize that it's something else. Like, I think that's the problem. What I worry about, in all honesty, I've shared this with Mark before offline, but I'm going to put it on video now and record it.
Okay.
I am legitimately concerned by the sensationalism of entrepreneurism.
Oh, I hear you.
Not for any other reason than, let's say that you guys, as aspiring entrepreneurs, want to get out and start your own business. And you do it because you have all these expectations that you've been taught. And then you go to find out that it's nothing but a goddamn war zone. But yet all these people are supporting you and telling they love you, and you got a great business plan, and there's nothing that can go wrong, and all these little bells and whistles and these spreadsheets, and it doesn't work out. And then all of a sudden you turn around one day and none of your expectations in life have been met, and you've been grinding it for 5 to 10 years. You're going to immediately look and go, man,
I screwed up.
I screwed up. Nobody told me the real of this, and I'm miserable, and I'm bankrupt, and I lost my spouse, and this, and that, and that. You're gonna the legitimate reality of a significant emotional depression could exist.
Oh yeah, the whole failure is great. Let's fail early, fail often, fail your way to the top. It's wonderful.
Fail forward, fail fast.
It's horrible, and some people never recover from it. Their reputations are shot, and as you said, psychologically, they're just beaten down.
Dude, you can get yourself in a dark ass spot.
Sure, yeah,
real quick.
You really can,
real quick. And if you fail, you can get there really fast.
That's why it's best not to.
That's right.
It's my experience.
That's right. And then, and if you do, you have to be able to pick yourself up.
Right.
And that's, let's be honest, like I would say there's many people out there that don't have a positive confidence already built into their self-esteem. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you better have almost a narcissistic amount of confidence in your being. Like the only reason that Mark and I are not narcissists is the fact that we question whether we are or not.
Well, I have my wife to keep me straight.
Right, very true.
Okay, she's been very helpful in that regard.
But you
put the ego in check. You know?
But it's true. But you have to be like, you have to be confident in
no, you do.
In yourself and have faith, like Mark said in the beginning. You know, confidence in the faith, I think, is really the biggest thing. Like, I mean, like it's going to work out, it's going to be fine, but you know, and if it doesn't work out, then you can't wallow in that. And I'm afraid that there's stuff that my junior high teachers told me and made me believe that was truth in the world that I'm still, and as you know this, Mark, the older you get, we process through those things that we were taught and like, that shit ain't true.
Yeah.
Like that, what the hell? Like, you know, like, why am I just now realizing that, you know, that's not really what that meant? You know, because I get older and I start figuring that out. Same thing with this. This is another form of learning to where it's at the high probability and theoretical. And even when you read about people going through bad times and it didn't work out, well, there's a reason why it didn't work out. If they should have done this, then it wouldn't have been so bad. And so now in your mind, you're avoiding that pitfall, but you still get slapped in the face.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like nothing's true. It's like you have to be able to go into it. That's where that enthusiasm, that passion comes into this. Like, well, if you're not relentless,
this to me goes back and, you know, I could say, you've been very successful by not doing what I'm going to say.
Right.
And that is just going into a mature market and just doing something better than everybody else. I mean, you did have to invent something new.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's a much less likely path to success. Can be spectacularly successful, which you were by any standard. But, you know, if you want to talk safe, I always tell people it's like pizza. Everybody friggin' loves it. Okay. I don't need to do any market testing. I don't need to do, nobody needs to calculate the size of the freaking market. We got what, 580,000 people living in Northwest Arkansas. Yeah. I'd say probably 499,000 of them love pizza and maybe 50,000 of them will eat pizza.
Yeah.
Okay. Just do it better than the next guy. Yeah. And you're much less likely to fail because you're going into something where the demand is absolutely 100% proven.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'll take the motorcycle business as an example. So I'm working with this company. Well, our plan, if we achieve it in 7 years, all we need is 0.53% of the U.S. market to hit our goal. Is that likely? Does that seem that's 0.5%? It's a huge market. Should we be able to scratch out 0.5%? Yeah, if we're not friggin' lazy. Okay. If we spend money on marketing and we keep innovating our product, we're going to hit 0.5% of the domestic market. That doesn't even include all the international market opportunities that exist. But I mean, it's like, I like big, mature. Do I have to convince, you know, Sara to buy a motorcycle today? No, I don't need to sell one to Sara because I've got a massive market of people that already know they want one.
Right.
And all I got to do is get 1 out of 200 to buy mine. I mean, so I like these big, mature markets. I think the risk is super low when you go into those kind of things. You know, maybe it's not as dramatic, but, you know, usually with just really good marketing and just like cutting all the bureaucracy out of the business, making it a better place to work than everybody else's because they're all following the same stupid rule book that they learned wherever they learned it from, like their boss's boss learned it from, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, so just, you know, you can break a few of those molds out and spend money on marketing and keep innovating, then you're probably going to do really fine. And it's not that risky.
Yeah.
You know?
Agreed.
I mean, I think entrepreneurship doesn't have to be risky. I do agree that it's been glorified. The model of come up with an idea, then I make my big pitch and I sell that and I'm an instant millionaire. That's a horrible model. And the odds of that succeeding are about, as great as, at age 65, I'm going to turn into like, the world's #1 triathlete.
And here's what I love about what you just said. I've seen this happen when you do have somebody that goes and raises capital and they get the capital and then they exit. Like the news media is like, oh, so Mark raised some capital and then they just sold for $500 million to the next round. Right. And you still got this founder that raised at the begin with, and they're just, they're in Cityscapes or Celebrate and, just looking like that in the cover. Everything looks great, but if you really started digging in, they might have gotten like, $150,000 for the buyout.
Exactly.
Yeah, and no one knows that.
Right. It's like the 500,000. Did that go to them, or or the 500 million or whatever? Did that go to them, or did that go to the company?
Yeah. There's all kinds of deals and structures, and so
it's so true.
And of course those people never admit to the media either. Like, well, actually, it ended up not really working out very well for me financially. I mean, it was
a hell of as soon as I did that deal.
Yeah, I got fired. And I'm just kind of a lame duck. I don't have anybody, I mean, like actually, like I'm still in debt from everything, and it was really a bad deal for me. They're not going to admit that.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is fantasized. It's this PR game.
Yeah.
That goes along with it.
Is that why you think it's been so sensationalized? Is because
oh yeah, man, people love having pictures taken of themselves. I mean, here's the thing, and I know this is a little dangerous zone, Mark.
Go for it. I'm not scared.
You just soundbite.
Go.
So who do you think wins if you take an entrepreneur with a great idea, who has very little capital, but that wants to go into a big opportunity with a big market, with big money, and then get matched up with an investor? Who do you think really wins in that scenario?
I'm going to take a guess and say it's not the entrepreneur.
Because
it's the golden rule. He or she who has the gold rules.
Yeah. It's so
That's
true.
The principle. That's a great one.
And I heard there's an analogy that I can't remember what book I read it in, Mark, some business book, an entrepreneur book, I'm sure. But they said investors are like horses, entrepreneurs are like wolves. Investors have eyes on both sides, watching out for all risk. They're prey because their money's going to get taken away. And then a wolf has eyes on the front and they're going out to hunt. Right? But anytime you get investors and an investment group involved, that's why they crunch the hell out of numbers. That's why there's a massive, painfully massive and due diligent process. Like if you sell a company, it's not like selling the car over the weekend. I mean, it is freaking one of the most painful transactions you can go through, because you feel like that, it's worse than going to the freaking doctor. I mean, you're getting examined, like, it's like the IRS, right? I mean, it's bad.
Yeah.
And so, but it's because could be at any moment this breaking point of where all the money is just gone and it's at risk, which I don't kind of blame them, but who ends up winning is if I could have somebody with a big vision, big idea, and working 90 hours a week and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. And then I'm letting them create this thing that I put some money into. And I get to go sit down once every month and just kind of look over the numbers a little bit and give some consultation. And then I go back and hang out with, do other things. But this person's over there driving and putting everything.
I love that.
So jealous.
Baby.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for.
Love it.
Right there.
Love it.
Yeah.
And then they get but then they get that entrepreneur gets on the cover of the magazine. You don't see the investors on the cover of the magazines, right? You see the founder, right? And the founder's up there and they're being glorified. That just kind of feeds the frenzy of my next candidates, because they said, hey, I went into Howerton and Zweig Capital and got my first seed round. And then I get more people like them coming back to me for more money,
Yeah.
It's the reality of it.
There's a very small percentage of startups that get venture capital. It's like it's such a micro percentage.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of people out there just have to grind it out and build their way up over time, bootstrap it, and borrow money from mom and dad and everything else.
I feel like we should edit out that last thing that I just went through.
No, that's okay. We don't need to edit that out.
All right, cool.
It's good stuff. It's all true because that's the image of the media. That's why we have to sort of temper that.
Well, and I think that
for people, that's part of our job here.
Yeah, we got to speak some truth because it's not like I don't think that it's all bad. I think that there are a lot of good deals and there's ideas and there's things that cannot be done without capital.
Right.
And you have to have an army to start up, like software technology is a big example, right? Or if you wanted to
drug company, FDA approval.
If you wanted to create your first car, and put it on the road, you're going to need some help. With that,
it takes a lot of money to build up this production machine.
Yeah. But the truth's not always told in it, right? And let's not be unrealistic. You can get your feelings hurt if you're truly an entrepreneur that's driving for a passionate vision and idea, and then you give your equity away, and you turn around 5 years later, and you're on the cover of Inc. magazine, but now you've been off of it for 3 years, and no one loves you anymore. Those aren't good things. It's not good things. Mm-hmm. And you made $100,000.
I hope better than that. So what else have we got, guys?
We've talked a lot about investors, stuff like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Something that I think is also very common is having a co-founder or a partner. I think both of you have had experiences with that. What were those experiences like? Do you suggest going into business with a partner? And if so, what should we look for in a partner?
I'm going to just jump into that one. I mean, to me, what I look for is people who have the same values and the same goal for what we're trying to do at the business, but are totally 180 degrees opposite of me. The worst partnership is where the two of you are exactly alike and you fight over the same territory then. Mm-hmm. And it's never going to work out.
You agree with the principles, but you end up fighting over the territory on who.
Yeah, because let's say you both are good at design and you both don't like dealing with clients or whatever. All right, well, if you're going to be in the design business, somebody's got to deal with clients. Yeah. And if you both want to do the design, you're going to have conflict. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest mistake a lot of people make. Is they go into business with their friends and other people that they think are like them. We're just alike. Being just alike is horrible. The best partners I had were people who were totally different. They did things I wasn't going to do well, and I did things that they didn't do well.
Yeah.
You put the two of us together. It's not all that different from you and Alex when you started out. You're a lot different. Mm-hmm. Both of those guys worked for me at one time, so I know. And they're both still friends. I mean, I think that's as good of an example as any.
Yeah, I just would agree with all that. I mean, and I would also say that, had I not had partners, that I don't know how successful I would have been on my own.
I agree with that 100%. Mm-hmm.
It kind of all backs up to everything we've been talking about today. It ain't easy. And if you can have two folks that are
worried
invested, worried, wigging out, scared, and all that kind of stuff, obsessed, then the better.
That's true.
Yeah. Because here's the other thing nobody tells you. You're going to be crazy to everyone else. Like you're going to be on an island from day one because you're going to believe in this and nobody else can see it. Although, your spouse might be like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you." That'll be the first day. But come about 3 months later when you've been freaking check floating.
And you're not making any money. Yeah. Yeah. Then they're like, "What are you doing this for?" Listen,
it's so true.
This is a concern to me. When I look at companies that I get involved with, if the owners are not paying themselves anything, I worry about that.
Big time.
Mm-hmm. I worry that they are going to be able to sustain their motivation level because their spouses are going to be saying, "You're a freaking idiot." And that's going to put them in a conflict situation when they go home every day. Yeah. That's a bad thing.
It is, man.
They've got to make you got to figure out a way you can make a halfway decent living at the same time as doing.
I can't wait till we have our spouses on next week.
Yeah.
That's going to be so good. It will be so good.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I hope. Just don't do anything that makes mine mad at me. That's all I can say.
I won't. And don't say anything that's like potentially sensitive topics that you don't know anything about. And it just brings up a bunch of stuff that I don't even expect.
Okay, well, listen, I'll say the same thing.
Deal. Let's be on our best behavior next
We will.
week. Oh, yeah.
It's going to be fun.
It is. They're wonderful.
But seriously, though, that is a really big problem. I think a lot of people don't consider is the relationship of the business owners with their spouses and how they feel about the business that the business owner has created. Sometimes they're both involved in it. That's a really tough situation.
Yeah.
And you might think it's great to work together, and there can be some situations where it really works out well, but a lot of times it doesn't. A lot of times there's resentment there.
Yeah.
One of them is in the sort of driver's seat. The other one's helping. The helper gets tired of never having the limelight and is very resentful. Okay, that can develop.
You're talking about just general partnerships or the spouse part?
I'm talking about spouses working together.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that you get into. I mean, that can happen with partners too. In a business where somebody's the extrovert and commands the attention, and the other one isn't behind the scenes making everything work, and they can become resentful.
Yeah, they like it. People like it at first, but it can start building resentment. I mean, especially when, in my experience, I was kind of the front person a lot of times, right? And I mean, I would appear in some sort of media, and it really became uncomfortable whenever, whether I quoted something or I was in an event, but that's just what I did. I mean, like between me and the partners, I was the more extroverted, I guess. And I showed up, right. And I would call and, I'd just do those things. But when it starts getting noticed, then it becomes, it can make even the person that's in that, like myself at the time, that me feel a little uncomfortable about the attention. And not in the lack of attention, rather from the partner who I know is really the one that's driving. I mean, like, there's no way in hell that I've.
Oh man, I've been there.
Yeah. What else you got?
Well, you said something earlier. Sorry to backtrack a little bit here, but you said something earlier that kind of piqued my interest that I wanted to ask you more about. Politics in the workplace, in business. What kind of a role does that play? How much do you feel like you maybe played the game a little bit, and how much do you kind of try and stay out of it? Just general thoughts on that.
I mean, I think that, there is a line between politics and just what I would call, I don't know how to really say it, just appreciation or understanding and being thoughtful and consideration. I think there's a line between that, right? Like, so for example, if you are working together and you're responsible over marketing, you're responsible over sales, and you come with something that would impact, the sales side of things, I'd want you to be recognized for that, even though you're head of sales, right? I mean, that's not necessarily political as it is more recognition and consideration. And I think that you have to be strong in the stance to bust that open and keep it open, because those are the types of things that can really lead into the politics. Because if I didn't allow that recognition for you to happen, like that one decision will just start cascading into a bunch of politics that become cancerous and toxic.
And silos.
Yeah, silos and cliques. And
I've worked in some bigger companies, and I'm sure there were people who thought I was political because, for example, let's say I report to the executive vice president, but the president is somebody I've got a relationship with. He's mentoring me. I talk with him regularly. We go out to lunch together. We talk at night. Some people would go, oh, shit, that's why he's a freaking brown noser. He's being political, okay? No, it's not that at all. It's
taking care of business.
Yeah, I realize who ultimately has control of the resources. I need resources to do my job as the head of marketing or whatever it is. Well, and so I've got to have a relationship. I've got to have the attention of that person. I've got to have their respect. And it's essential for me to be successful in my job to help the company. It's not political. Now, some people wouldn't do that. Okay, well, then maybe they don't get the resources they need.
Yeah.
And then they fail.
Yeah.
Who benefits from that? The company? No.
Right.
So I think a lot of times, I will admit, I always had a relationship with the top people anywhere I worked.
Well, I don't think
from the first job I had.
But that's not political. That's just you being ambitious and owning
but
your responsibility. But the
see that.
Right. That's right. That's when the politics start, is when the people that aren't doing those things.
Yeah. And then you get ahead, and then they wonder, well, why am I not getting ahead? Well, you're not forming relationships with people who control your destiny. And resources.
And I would say that if you're an entrepreneur and you're building that company, you have to be aware of that. And then the first inkling you get of any types of true politics, which are the recipients that are looking, and they're basically gossiping, is what it comes down to. Gossiping, infusing, toxicity into each other, clicking up, all that type of stuff. You recognize it and you get all over that and destroy it. I mean, if it means, it's like literally having a couple of your kids and they get in a fight and you're just not doing anything about it, they're going to destroy themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, and I hate to use that analogy, but if you bring them in and you sit them down and bust it out open,
bang their heads together like a coconuts, right?
I like that.
Maybe. But you bring it out on the forefront, because man, that toxicity does not go away. It gets bad real quick. And that will destroy your business a lot sooner than you run than a lot of other things.
And those are the things everybody's like, well, what keeps you awake at night? I hate that question. I always say my prostate condition if they ask me, because that always gets them going. And I got to urinate like every 2 hours. But seriously, what keeps you awake at night when you own a business is the relationships of the people that work for you.
Yeah,
it's so true.
It's true.
I just had lunch the other day with a friend of mine. He worked at, like Microsoft and TI and all these at the highest level. He's like, yeah, it's like nobody's sitting around worried about like, where's the cash going to come from to meet payroll? Where's the next sale? Yeah. Instead, they're worried about like, well, Luke and Sara aren't getting along. I mean,
who's going to leave first, and what kind of meeting am I going to have tomorrow?
Yeah, what am I going to do then? And I mean, it's just those are the things that really tend to preoccupy. At least that was my experience. Yeah. Not to say I wasn't ever in some really tight situations.
Very true.
So.
Yeah, it seems like the success or the downfall comes from the people.
Oh, it does.
Totally. Part of the organization.
It absolutely does. And getting good people to get along is really difficult. And you better be considering the spouses. That's all I'm going to say.
Very true.
Because there's also another issue we haven't talked about. What if the spouse doesn't like somebody who is in your employ? What do you do then? And they're good. They're a good employee, but your spouse doesn't like them.
Oh, yeah. It's bad.
It's horrible. It's a horrible position to be in. I've been in it.
So we have any more questions? I do have a meeting like right now.
Okay.
I'm out of questions.
Yeah, we could be done. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Did you have one more? Like a final question?
I had like kind of a funny question.
Oh, okay.
So, well, maybe.
It might be funny. We'll give it a shot.
I don't want to build it up too much. Name for White Spider is a company, pretty unique. Zweig Group, named after yourself.
That's so unique.
How? Well, I mean, it is your last name in and of itself is unique.
Okay, I'll buy that.
Also, go back to the need for a little bit of narcissism in the entrepreneurship. I'm just kidding.
All right, Sara.
But
it didn't bother him. Like, there's nothing bothers you.
No, I always wondered why he why he misspelled the name of white and spider. All right. Plus, I never particularly liked the graphics of spider webs all over my vehicles, which was another thing that White Spider used to do. But that said, obviously,
we are not editing that part out.
Obviously, it worked out great. Yeah. In my case, the only reason I ever used my name in my business was I already had like knowledge of my name out there in the field when I started, because I did a lot of writing and I did a lot of speaking. So when I first started what today is Y Group, as Marks Weig and Associates, it was because I was already known.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I want to cash in on that? If I called it the, the Consulting Collaborative or some crap, it wouldn't
Spelled
have,
incorrectly.
I would have lost out on the investment that I already made in building up my name.
Mm-hmm.
But there's negatives associated with that. Obviously, if you fail, or you have some
that's a
huge
good
ethical
point.
problem, then your entire name is destroyed. I mean,
Never thought about that. That's true. There's a bad downfall.
Yeah.
to
Oh,
that.
there's some, there can be some real negatives associated with that. So Eric is younger than me and trendy, and he comes up with the crazy names and stuff. That's what people love today. It's like the names a lot of times have nothing to do with what the business does.
That's true. It's just very short and
Canoe.
catchy.
Canoe. They make electric trucks. Let's call it water bottle. What do? We provide cleaning services. I mean, I don't know.
The key is to spell it incorrectly. I think.
BTTL.
CANU.
Yeah, take out all the vowels. Or switch them around.
Make it all lowercase.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, you want to close this out?
Yeah.
I got to get to this meeting.
Okay.
I'm
sorry, Eric. I know you got to get back to work. I don't really have to.
I mean, I could just walk off. If y'all want to keep, I could literally just walk out.
No, we'll end this. And sorry for all the cutting up, people. Hopefully you've managed to get a few nuggets out of this. We really appreciate you listening in
Mark,
today.
Look up to the camera when you're talking.
Oh, sorry. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate you tuning in
talking about
today.
earlier. I don't like the fact that my
man. So we promise next episode's going to be a lot more serious.
Yes.
And we're thankful to spend time with these intelligent and motivated and perceptive and good-looking young people here that we have in Luke and Sara. And
it's been fun.
So it's been another episode of
Big Talk about Small Business.
And tune in next week, and we'll have another exciting episode for you.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Big Talk about Small Business. If you have any questions or ideas for upcoming shows, be sure to head over to our website, www.bigtalkaboutsmallbusiness.com, and click on the Ask the Host button for the chance to have your questions answered on the show. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn at Big Talk About Small Business. And be sure to head over to our website to read articles, browse episodes, and ask questions about upcoming shows.